Sister Anne, I think we're ready for you to start.
Hello and welcome everyone, wherever you are joining us today. I am Sister Anne Arabome, the Associate Director of the Faber Center here at Marquette University. It's great to be with you. Indeed, it's a gift and a real blessing to be with you here to ponder, to pray, to engage and reflect together the meaning of hope in our lives as a theme of our Mission Week. So to begin, I would like to invite you to relax into this hope. Just relax, and as we invite the Great Spirit, the God of our lives, the one who renewed Ignatius's hope when he chose to follow the path of God in his life. So I invite you to breathe in and open your heart to the God who is ready today to teach us how to trust our heart, our mind, our intuition, our inner knowing, the senses of our bodies, the blessings of our spirit, so that we may enter into the sacred space and love beyond our fear with the passing of each glorious sun and come out with renewed hope and joy. So relax into this hope, knowing that the God of our lives is leading us into more than we can be. And so with that, I would like to invite to lead us in a Native American prayer. Earth, teach me.
Thank you, Sister Anne. Teach me quiet as the grasses are still with new light. Teach me suffering as those stones suffer with memory. Earth, teach me humility as blossoms are humble with beginning. Earth, teach me caring as mothers nurture their young. As the tree that stands alone. Earth, teach me meditation as the ant that crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me freedom as the sky. Earth, teach me acceptance as the leaves that die each fall. Earth, teach me renewal as the seed that rises in the spring. Earth, teach me to forget myself as life forgets its life. Earth, teach me to remember kindness as dry fields weep with rain.
Thank you, so. So I invite you to open your heart to the next hours of reflection and sharing together, to allow Earth to teach you and to invite you to the hope that God is granting you. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Anne and Sue, for creating such a beautiful space in this virtual environment to welcome us all to and to help celebrate and kick off this very special luncheon today. My name is Kelsey Otero. I am the Associate Director of Social Innovation at Marquette University. I also run the 707 Hub space, and we are thrilled to be able to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Shital Vora, here to the 707 Hub today to be able to share her story with you all. This event is occurring in two different parts. In this first part, we're going to have the opportunity to hear from Shital. I will also do an interview with her and dig a little bit deeper. And then after Shital is done, Sister Anne is going to lead everyone through a beautiful reflection. So pay attention to some of the things Shital says, be open to hope during this next hour. And I just am so privileged to be able to share such an amazing alum and her story with you. I also just want to quickly mention, Shital was, and Global Brigades was highlighted today in the Journal Sentinel. So if you cannot get enough of her after you hear from her, I definitely encourage you to go read that and check that out. Her mission trips and the volunteer programs that she has established are bringing a lot of hope to so many people, especially our students right now. And before we welcome Shital to the stage, I want to invite Amy Lovell, who has been a longtime supporter of the women's luncheons here at Marquette as part of Mission Week, to briefly share a reflection from one of the Global Brigades trips she was fortunate enough to go on a couple years ago and reflect a little bit on how that has brought her hope, especially during this time. So Amy, why don't you take it away?
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm really excited to hear Dr. Vora as well. I'm a big fan of Dr. Vora's. So this morning, as I was reading the readings for today, I was reflecting on what I was going to share with you and trying to get it all to come together. And I felt like the readings this morning really did a good job of helping me to do that. So this morning, we learned about the creation story in the readings and also Jesus' healings. And Bishop Barham refers to Jesus' healings as actions of God in this world. Global Brigades and my time with Global Brigades in Nicaragua really goes along with this actions in God's world. The three theological virtues and one we are celebrating this week, hope, faith, and love, they all exist together. And hope can't exist without faith because you have to believe that there is heaven and there is eternal life. And that hope allows us to be in relationship with God and to hear the Holy Spirit that can drive us by using the hope to be a difference. Dr. Vora has a quote that says, "To be a doer instead of an observer is really what's necessary to become the difference." And so I think that faith, hope, and love all combine in God's action in the world through Global Brigades. And I'd like to share a few stories of this from my time in 2017 in Nicaragua. We set up a medical clinic in a very mountain village in Nicaragua in a school. And people walked for over 2 hours, 2.5 hours to come to this clinic, to see doctors, to see dentists, to get medicine, and some even just to get vitamins. We here in the United States have such access to healthcare, but Global Brigades allows people who wouldn't otherwise get healthcare to come. And they count on these brigades, and schools rotate different weeks, and they always really look forward to Marquette because Marquette is the founder of Global Brigades. And so we had 80 students that year. And there was one woman who walked 2.5 hours with a gaping wound in her leg, and it was infected. And so our doctors treated her, we gave her medication, and we even provided a ride back for her so she didn't have to walk. But I think, hope is expressed in this. People would not walk 2.5 hours if they didn't have hope that the Global Brigade would be there and that we would answer their needs. And so what Dr. Vora has provided for so many people is just something that we take for granted every day here. And so I think you really saw that reflected in the people. The second part of our trip, we built sanitation systems, and we dug ditches for a water supply to come down the hill through gravity. And we used pickaxes and shovels. And you couldn't help but reflect on how here in the United States, we have a lot of machinery that can do this in a matter of hours. But we, as Marquette's Global Brigade, took up the work of the brigaders before us to finish digging the ditches for the water pipes to go down the mountain. And as we were digging, there was a villager who was digging alongside of us and showing us what to do. And we couldn't help but notice he had a lot of blisters on his hands from using pickaxes and shovels. And one of our students, who I was part of his work team, we were working there, took his gloves off and he gave them to the villager. And, he said to me, Mrs. Lovell, I only have to do this for 3 days. He has to do this his whole life. And quickly, this young man had blisters on his fingers. And when we offered him our gloves, he was like, no, I'm fine. I only have to do this 3 days. And I think, you're seeing love in action when you see a student do that. Nobody prompted him to do that. He just did that for the need that he saw. And the third reflection from Global Brigades that struck me was that a lot of these students and health professionals have had the opportunity to go multiple times, year after year. And a lot of the villagers remembered them. And this really touched them because, a year had gone by before they had been there, and they vividly remembered them. And again, this just shows that love is the unspoken language that is shown, and it allows you to be the light to somebody, but it also allows you to bring hope to somebody in their time of darkness. So I'd like to leave you with this final prayer that I wrote this morning. Father, as we gather today to listen to the inspiring words and work of Dr. Vora, we thank you. We thank you for her answering your call to use her gifts to be your action in this world. She brings hope and light during people's darkness and needs. We ask you to open our hearts, minds, ears, and eyes to see those in our everyday lives who could use our light in their darkness during these challenging times. Trust is built in these small moments when we choose to connect and love, bringing hope to others. May God bless Marquette.
Thank you, Amy. That was incredibly beautiful and impactful, and I cannot think of a better way to set the stage for our guest speaker today. Since we all are in a virtual community right now, but we still want to create a space for community, I want to encourage you all to use the chat. If there's something that Dr. Vora says that strikes you, or you want to share what is bringing you hope right now, please leave a message so that we can all celebrate in that together. We will also be giving away 10 bags of Cafe Holistico coffee, which is part of the Global Brigades brand, to people who do leave a message in the chat about what is inspiring them right now, or giving them hope, or a reflection to something that Dr. Vora shared. And with that, I want to welcome to our virtual stage our wonderful guest, Dr. Shital Vora, to start to share a little bit of her story.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelsey, and thank you, Amy, for such a beautiful introduction and reflection. I am so honored to be here today, to be a part of Mission Week, to kick it off, to be a part of this community at Marquette, and really just be able to share this story that happened here on campus. It is very emotional and exciting to be able to be back on campus to tell the story about how Global Brigade started. Just as Amy said, it happened here, and it was founded at Marquette. And a lot of just coming back to campus and driving through the streets and just seeing the familiar sights. It's been just so exciting to be able to be a part of this event. So, I'm happy to start to tell a little bit about how we got started. It's been a long journey, and every single step of the way was we were developing out Global Brigades, when it was just a mere idea to who we are today, has really been writing on the concept and the opportunity of hope. There were many opportunities that come our way. There were many challenges that came our way in developing out this organization and really supporting those in need. And hope is really what brought us through in those times, those successes and even those challenges, to be able to do what we are doing today and helping so many of those in need. So back in 2003, I was a junior at Marquette, and and just having an excellent experience on campus, making friends, learning a ton. I was a physical therapy student in the physical therapy program. And one of the things that I really personally wanted to do in my college experience was to study abroad. That was something I, really wanted to have as a part of, my time and, my college, just kind of part of my college chapters. And the physical therapy program here at Marquette is such an intense and amazing program. And, classes happen during the summer. It happens, you really just have your winter and your spring breaks to be able to, take that time off. And so, studying abroad for a semester or even longer than that was just not in the cards, right? Being a part of that program. And so, I had been sharing this thought and just, this desire to wanting to, explore a little bit and travel a little bit while doing, all of the academic things that I wanted to do in college with a friend here on campus. I was kind of lamenting in the fact that I wasn't able to be able to, participate in something like that. And so, and my friend who was also a junior at Marquette, he had mentioned that there was a group of physicians back from his hometown in Indianapolis that travel to Honduras, once or twice a year, and they provide they provide medical care to rural communities in Honduras that have zero access to medicine and zero access to doctors. And so, he said, what if we, took time during spring break, or, what if we did something during winter break to be able to join them, and, maybe that could fulfill a little bit of that experience. And so, we thought it was a great idea. And we quickly, over the course of the next few weeks, we gathered a few students, a couple of friends, a couple of other students, to take this, trip to Honduras during spring break. And, as undergrads, we did not know, we did not think we were going to make too much of an impact, that we would just be able to be exposed to different cultures, to really see, a different setting, and, being in the healthcare track, being able to shadow healthcare professionals and being, close in that space was something that was very exciting to me and the other students that participated. So, we got on a plane and with the other physicians, and we headed to Honduras. And what happened during that week was completely transformational. We were able to not only, experience the things that we had anticipated, such as, seeing a different culture, just really seeing some of these communities in need, being able to support in any way that we can, being, young aspiring professionals still in that undergrad setting. But what we didn't, realize was that as young individuals, as young aspiring professionals, we were able to make an impact and also be impacted ourselves. And, a lot of what happened during that week was the interaction with many, many community members that were just so grateful to be able to have doctors and dentists and nurses and, other healthcare professionals, traveling all this way to be able to come see them and support them and provide them with what they need. Also, being able to see some of, these, the resource limited communities for the first time, talking to individuals and hearing their stories and hearing, what their day looks like, what dreams or ideas and thoughts they have, across the world, and really thinking about the fact that, despite geographical location, despite language barriers, despite all of the different things that really physically, separate us, we're all together, in this world together, and we all just want to have good things happen, for us, for our families, and for those that we love around us. And that experience in itself was just that connection with each other, that ability to be able to help these communities, in addition to learning about ourselves and learning about, what we wanted to do with our lives, given that transformational week, was something that, when we came back to campus a week later, really carried with us. And so at that point, we were just brimming with excitement. We did, we felt like we wanted to make a continued commitment to those communities. What we did not want, and personally, what I, did not want to do is just have the 1 week and then, that was it. That the connections that were made, the people that we met, were just, so deep within our hearts that, we wanted to come back and continue to make that commitment and continue to see these relationships and these opportunities through. So, back then in 2003, we tried to see if there were organizations that catered to undergraduate students for this experience. And so back then there was Doctors Without Borders, but you had to be a licensed professional, which, as undergrads, we were not. And then there was Peace Corps, and but with Peace Corps, you had to dedicate 2 years of time after graduation, and that was certainly something that wasn't in that wheelhouse of where we were as students at Marquette at that time. And so after looking and searching for organizations, we simply didn't find anything, and so came up with the idea that we should just start an organization ourselves, and it will start here at Marquette with the Marquette chapter. And we will continue to visit the communities and continue to do the work that we did, the week before for that week in Honduras, as much as we can, and really take those relationships and take that impact a step further. And so that's when we had first started our official Global Brigades chapter here at Marquette. And we had the following winter break, we had about 20 students from Marquette go to Honduras, and we were able to visit some of the same communities and provide access to healthcare. And what we did was we really set up a mobile medical clinic. So we would have a triage station, a doctor's consultation station, a pharmacy where we were able to distribute the medication that we brought along with us. And and we had brought along with us, in addition to the students, healthcare professionals from the Milwaukee area, so that we were just being able to shadow and support. And it's really those healthcare professionals that were providing the access to healthcare to those community members. So, after that trip, we had so many excited students coming back to campus, and we called that, the brigade buzz, where everybody is just really excited and talking to one another, and the relationships that were built and the friendships. And what started to happen was somebody from the group at Marquette had a friend that went to University of Michigan, and she was hearing all about, this incredible experience, and also the ability to make tremendous impact within the community. And so, she said, I would like to start a chapter at University of Michigan. And so they started a chapter, and they went to Honduras. And, the funny thing that happened was somebody from the University of Michigan chapter had a family member that went to University of Southern California. And so they were listening to these stories and really hearing about, what happened during that week. And so they wanted to start a chapter themselves to be able to go and do similar work, and, to be able to make that impact, and to be able to, learn and grow in these communities that were resource limited. So from there, fast forward to a year and a half later, we had over 80 universities across the US that were participating in Global Brigades programs, all doing medical brigades. And that, again, was just the mobile medical clinics I had mentioned before. And, the Marquette chapter, we kept going, every break that we could, whether it was spring break, if we had a week off in summer, if it was winter break, we would head down to Honduras and really fulfill those commitments and continue to build what we were attempting to do at that time with the communities and bringing access to healthcare. And what we really started to see was that, the patients that were being seen in the mobile medical clinics were, we started to see the same things over and over again, right? A lot of individuals were suffering from illnesses because they did not have clean water. So, waterborne illnesses. There were also a lot of issues that people were presenting because of lack of public health infrastructure or public health knowledge. So simple things like upper respiratory illnesses and simple things like not washing your hands. It's kind of ingrained into us now. But, when you don't have that information, a lot of those illnesses present because that information or that access to public health infrastructure isn't there either. And then also, one of the other things that we saw is that simply that there was zero access to capital for these community members, that, they did not have a place where they could, be able to save their money, or they could take out a loan if an emergency were to happen and they needed to get, funds for, something that was a little bit more serious. And there was just zero access to that. And so that was such a limiting factor. And after we're going, to these communities and listening to their stories and hearing about, some of the needs that the community members had, we really wanted to take what we were doing from a medical brigade standpoint a step further. And that's where we started to really develop what we call our holistic model. And our holistic model is simply a multidisciplinary approach to be able to address these resource-limited communities and really breaking the cycle of poverty and lifting them to a better quality of life. And with this holistic model, we have access to healthcare being the first and foremost. We have clean water and hygiene solutions. And again, we have access to capital. And with those three things, we are able to really lift our communities out of poverty and really give them that, long-term change that they were really searching for. And so with those conversations, we built a water brigades program, we built a public health brigades program, and also a microfinance and business brigades program, where what we were doing is we had these, 2 to 5 year long commitments within the community to be able to really build the infrastructure there. So we were really empowering our community members to be leaders, and they, were leading the charge, and we would simply, kind of be on the bottom, pushing up and bringing those necessary resources to the community. So, for example, we have community members that were, being able to run the community bank. We had community members that were setting up the mobile medical clinics. And what the university students were doing, what they were playing the 7 to 10 day part of what was a 2 to 5 year long commitment within the communities. So they were kind of plugged in to the various parts of the communities when they were, being able to build a kind of a new system within their community to lift themselves out of poverty. And what was really exciting in sharing or in hearing Amy's reflection is that the universities are kind of picking up, a lot of them, if they're doing a water brigade, they're picking up where the other university left off, right? So it's a long-term effort, and it requires everyone working together. And even though you're from a different university going on a different time, these students were really truly working together for years, right, together to be able to bring these resources to the communities. And so, what's been really exciting over the last 15 years is that we've really tightened up our holistic model. We've been, working with our community members and getting a tremendous amount of feedback from all of our student volunteers, from other experts in the field. And what really sets us apart as an organization is really kind of, the three things. Number one, the fact that we're approaching each community in a multidisciplinary way in our holistic model and making sustainable change. And, when I say sustainable, that simply means long-term change for generations to come within the community. So not just, for a week or for a couple of years. It's change that happens, for many generations to come for these families, so that it is permanent change, to really alleviate them out of poverty. And, the other aspect is, our full-time staff on the ground in each of the countries that we work in. I had mentioned Honduras. We had since also also been developed. We have full programs in Panama, in Nicaragua, in Ghana, and in Greece. And, those communities, are those countries that we work in. We have full-time staff on the ground who are really seeing all of our programs and projects through on a year-long basis. So, we have we have hundreds and hundreds of staff members that are there that are not only working with our university students, but following up with the community members and following up with the community banks that have been developed, and, and being able to troubleshoot, if a water system were to break, those types of small things that really make sure that change is sustainable, is really empowering our community members to be able to have access to that staff when necessary. And then also, being an organization of our size, we're sending about, pre-COVID, we were sending about, 10,000 volunteers, up to 10,000 volunteers a year to these countries. But, our students are really fundraising to be able to make that change in the community. They're fundraising to be able to, go on their trips and, be able to have those funds available for those communities to use in the way that they need to be able to meet those resources that they're looking for. So, being student-led and, having a lot of full-time staff on the ground, and then also, collectively having our holistic model be such a pinnacle of making sure that every aspect is addressed, is really making that long-term change within the community. And so, now about 15, 16 years later, we're so excited to share that we have over 450 chapters throughout the world. We're in so many different universities. We've supported over 1.5 million patients throughout all of the countries that we work in. We've built hundreds of water systems, and we've built or developed with our community leaders about over 100 community banks to have that access to capital. And what we're really seeing in our communities is that long-term change. Many of the communities that have completed these completed these projects, and we're looking back and visiting, or kind of checking in, those programs are still there. And what's been really excited is these community members are now empowered, and they have a lot of pride in what they've been able to do, with our volunteers, but they themselves, what they've been able to do to really lift their entire communities, family by family out of poverty. And, by simple things like bringing clean water, right? By having access to healthcare and by having access to capital. Those are just tremendous things that are, that are happening in these communities. And, it's been so exciting, and the journey of being able to start with this, small idea on campus, with a bunch of people here that were rooting for us, whether it was faculty or other friends, just sharing these ideas, to then, today where we're making this tremendous amount of impact, has just been such a great journey. And, every day I wake up thinking about, getting ready to go to work, right? Right now we're logging into Zoom and, those types of things, and we're unable to visit the countries that we work in. But being able to, get up and work with the team, and to be able to see the impact that we make, and to hear, most importantly, the leadership development and all of the amazing things that are happening to the students that are participating on the brigade. As me as an individual going on those first few trips had completely shifted my mindset, with what I wanted to do with my life. And, after really seeing the success of Global Brigades and doing this full time, it's very exciting to be able to be a part of this opportunity to be able to, make this world a better place. And I think that, many students on campus maybe have those ideas, and, my advice would be to always run with those ideas. You never know where it can take you. You never know, how successful it can be. And, again, it's just been a lot of what drove the success of Global Brigades has just been that hope of, making the world a better place, and then the hope of really making what we're doing as successful as it can be. So I'm happy to share, the story of how we started. And again, just very, very full circle, being able to talk about the beginning days and then the immense success to where we are today, back here on campus where it all began.
Thank you. That was just incredibly moving. It's so nice to see alumni that are out doing amazing things and inspiring other people. And I can tell just from the chat how much hope you have brought today in the last, 15 to 20 minutes to so many other people on this call from being able to hear your story. Outside of being a health equity advocate, a CEO of a large global NGO. You're also a mom. You just wear a ton of hats. And not to mention we're in the middle of a pandemic. So there's a lot going on here. So I'm curious, outside of the Global Brigades organization, what brings you hope and allows you to continue to stay motivated and open to hope when things seem really hard sometimes?
Definitely. So, I think that what has been really important in terms of being open to hope is that there's so many challenges and so many curveballs that are going to be thrown everyone's way, right? There isn't anything that is going to happen in a mathematical formula, right? Unless you're actually doing math. So, when you're trying to work on an idea, when you're trying to really tackle something or make something work that's really important to you and that's something that you're really passionate about, it's, being able to open your mind and being able to open, all of the doors that you see that are in front of you to be able to just walk through them despite any of those changes or those challenges. I think what's been really important for the experience that I've had in finding or being a founder of Global Brigades, but then also finding myself as an individual of how I wanted to, be a part of this organization and really spread that opportunity across is that, being able to just focus on the end goal, which is, the commitments that we have to our communities, to whatever the end goal would be for yourself. I think that that's the biggest thing that you need to just focus on. And despite challenges, despite uncertainties, that's always going to come, but not being able to have that knock you down and not being able to fixate on that is just finding a solution and then moving on. And majority of the time, a lot of it can just fall right back into place.
Your organization, the backbone of it is volunteers, including the levels who have volunteered on Global Brigades trips. But the pandemic has really shifted the way we volunteer. And you talked a little bit about that in your talk. But I want to, change gears a little bit and get your thoughts on how people during the pandemic, when it is a little bit harder to volunteer, can still find causes that they care about and figure out how to give back in a meaningful way.
So when we have, I'll talk a little bit about Global Brigades and how we've been able to create an opportunity for students to continue the work. And then I can talk a little bit about just broad, how we can continue to find those causes. So when the pandemic hit, when COVID-19 hit, we did not, we took a little bit of time to process what was happening, just like everybody else was. But at the end of the day, we had commitments to our communities and we did not want to break those commitments. And there were, so many community members that were, that we thought about, in terms of if we just put things on pause until things, resolve or slow down or when it becomes safe to travel again, we couldn't just simply wait for that. And so, what we did is we decided to innovate and become really creative and very entrepreneurial and shift the focus and how can we continue to do this type of work with the resources that we have right now, which is just being able to be virtual. And so that's where we created our Telebrigades program, and it sounds exactly like what it is. It's being able to volunteer in a virtual way. So we're able to have students log on to Zoom on their laptops, and in real time, they're being whisked away to Honduras, to Honduras, Panama, Nicaragua, Ghana, West Africa, to all of the countries that we work in. And our program is really designed to be able to learn about the communities, to be able to participate in a telemedicine if you're doing telebrigade or medical telebrigades, to be able to be a part of a water system design if you're doing water brigades. And for business brigades, is being able to consult small businesses within a community to be able to have them become more profitable and have them, have a better business portfolio at the end of the, at the end of the session. And so what we did is we, created a whole new program where students are still able to participate virtually. And what's been exciting is, we've done a large sum of telebrigades, I think over, 40 to 50 telebrigades. And we've gotten tremendous feedback that, of course, it's not the same as, physically being in the country, but you're making just as much impact because of the students on the ground, because of the faculty on the ground, and the students are able to, learn so much more, right? And it's the best that we've got, right? Given the current situation, trying to be safe and trying to, be able to follow the protocols from the pandemic. And so I think that, number one, to answer your question, Kelsey, is, being able to think of different ways to give back. It may not be traditional, right? You may not be able to go volunteer at your local health center, or you may not be able to, volunteer at your local food pantry because of some protocols and, and safety reasons, but there's so many other ways. And I think that it's kind of digging down into your brain and finding those creative ways. And I think everybody has that, everybody has, if you just kind of put some time to think about it, everybody has the opportunity to come up with those ways. And then the second part of your question is, being able to find those causes is, just going to the source. If there's something that you're really passionate about, whether it's, something locally in Milwaukee, or if there's something that, your family is very interested in supporting, is being able to talk to those individuals and say, how can we help during this time? And I think that just initiating that conversation is tremendous in being able to start, getting creative together. And, there isn't a limitation in volunteering, and there isn't a limitation in how much you can actually do.
So you are a very impressive social entrepreneur. And as you know, we at Marquette and Mike Lovell kind of coined the term difference maker. I'm curious if you thought you would have this kind of an impact globally when you were a student, and if there's anything special or formative about your time at Marquette that helped you to develop this entrepreneurial spirit.
So when I first started the idea of Global Brigades, we had no clue, to be completely transparent, that this was going to be as big as it was, or as it is. What our initial thoughts were is just being able to have a chapter at Marquette, and with the deep-rooted pillar of service at Marquette, we thought this was something that will stay. We'll always have a group of students being able to support and travel and have this type of experience. And so when we grew really fast, as I mentioned, in a year and a half, we had over 80 universities, and, fast forward today, we have over, 450 universities and over 10,000 volunteers. And we had no idea at the time that we were going to be this global, right? And this big. But also, that was not what we were focused on. We were not focused on how big we were going to get. We were focused on really supporting the resource limited communities. And that is, our mission, and our vision was to be able to do whatever, we can to make that happen, right? By mobilizing students, by fundraising, by creating really, really strong program methodologies that would create sustainable change. So, it's been really exciting to see that we've grown. I think that that's a testament to people that want to be a part of, making a change. And, and really what I'd like to say about, or what I'd like to add to that is, listening to those, again, kind of going back to the original thought from the previous question, is thinking about opening the dialogue, right? Is talking to people about, what it is, what do you want to do? How can we do this together? So many of our programs and our strongest ideas within Global Brigades has just been through students coming up with, I just want to learn more about this. Well, what if we do this, right? What if we do that? And it's really harnessing that creative and entrepreneurial thought process that I believe every student, everybody has, and really opening the door to be able to have that conversation. And to be, I think that part of Global Brigades' success, and a lot of Global Brigades' success, frankly, is so many people that were on campus, so many faculty members, being a physical therapy student, not knowing how to start up a business or an organization. It is a nonprofit, but, there are transactions and things that need to happen. And, being able to tap the shoulder from so many mentors on campus, those first few years. I think that if those mentors were not there and those individuals were not there rooting for us and being able to really support and help us and answer those questions and guide us, and really provide that hope to us that this is something that you absolutely can be successful with, I don't think that we would have, been able to be who we are today. So, I think that being back here on campus and just seeing, the old stomping grounds, as I like to call it, of, the beginning days of Global Brigades, and knowing that culture and that capacity is still here at Marquette. And in fact, it's grown so much more, meeting so many people, today and over time. It's been, this community is so amazing and so critical to not just Global Brigade's success, but to the success of many other organizations and, and other ideas and intentions that people have developed here on campus.
So one of the things I noticed in the chat is how much people were really drawn to the story of how you've worked with communities in partnership, and how that has created a sense of generational hope in a lot of these areas. And a little birdie told me that I think a good example of this, of highlighting this, if you don't mind sharing, is that you're not the only Shital, and that you as an individual have had such a large impact on a community. And I'm wondering if you would mind, hopefully you know what I'm talking about, if you would mind sharing that story with us.
Sure, I think I know exactly what you're talking about, Kelsey. Yeah, so in the first couple of brigades that I went on back in 2002, 2004, again, being able to, I think one of the most impacting experiences as an individual is being able to sit down with community members and talk to community members, and being able to hear their stories and learn a lot more. It's not just, putting a bunch of medical supplies or medications into a community. It's really connecting. And I think that's what makes Global Brigades different, is that we take the time to really listen and hear and have the community members lead, right? Their efforts to be able to, bring themselves out of poverty. And so the story I think that you're referring to, Kelsey, is I believe it was my second or third brigade. I was in a community, and and imagine we're in the middle of the mountains. There's a small school, and we set up a mobile medical clinic, right, with all of the small resources that we had and all of the volunteers there. And before, right when we arrived, before the clinic doors, so to say, were even open, there's about 1,000 people in line waiting to be seen by doctors and nurses, et cetera. And so, and many of these individuals, walked hours and hours, to be able to see these healthcare professionals. And so, there's a triage area just to, be able to support those that are maybe, more emergency and things like that. And there was a young woman in line, and she had a very, very small, very fresh new baby that she was, holding. And so, we had asked her, is everything okay? Is something wrong with the baby? Just the sheer, you could tell it was a newborn. And she said, no, I just want to make sure that, the baby's okay. I just had the baby about a couple days ago. And so, we kind of whisked her right to the front of the line because, obviously with the circumstances, and she shared throughout the conversation that she had walked 2 hours, with her newborn to be able to see a doctor. And again, she wasn't concerned anything was wrong, but she just wanted to be able to make sure everything was okay. And, her the hope that she had, right? And being able to meet and see and know that, she was going to get some attention, medical attention if needed, was there. And so after, she saw that out, of course, everything was fine. And, I sat down and I had spoken, I was talking to her, and she was very shy at first, and I was very shy at first, and, my Spanish wasn't great. And, obviously we're just trying to communicate with each other. And we started to get into a flow of conversation, and just a remarkable woman. She, talked a lot about her family. She talked about how she, while she was very excited about having a baby, that she was also just very nervous about being a mom. And, she shared a lot of things. And, she also shared at the end that she had never opened up this way to anyone before. And, and I shared with her, I also had not opened up to anyone that, in this capacity either. And we had a really great connection. And, again, I think that what was really highlighting that moment was, again, regardless of geographical language, we're all just human beings that really care about one another and really want to, and we have, a lot in common. And so, we had finished the medical brigade that day, and the following day we went back to the community to see some more patients that we weren't able to see that first day. And she came back, and and of course the first thing was, is everything okay, right? And you're walking another 2 hours with your baby, and she had her baby, and she had a piece of paper, and she said, can you do me a favor, and can you please write your name? And I said, absolutely. And I'm thinking she wanted to maybe stay in touch in some capacity or another. And the most touching thing had happened is that she said, well, I hadn't picked out a name for my daughter, but I wanted to name I wanted you to write down your name so that I knew how to spell it and say it, so that I could name her, after your name, because this was the first time that, I've able to, since being a mother and being nervous and, just having a lot of, a lot of just uncertainty in terms of, everything that a new mother goes through. She felt that she really cherished our time together. And that was probably one of the most impacting, just personal stories, despite, all of the actual impact that we're making when it comes to healthcare and water and access to capital, right? There's also this human impact that we're making on one another. And, visiting the community, 7 or 8 years later, the family is still there. And, it's such a near and dear part of my heart. And, also just validates that what we're doing as an organization and what we've created as Global Brigades is true. And it's, really important. And it's just really wonderful to have the opportunity to do this type of work.
Thank you for sharing that. You are a superhero in the eyes of so many, both here with our alumni base, students on campus, as well as in the global communities that you serve. And I think that someone named their daughter after you is provides me with a lot of hope and inspiration. We are at the end of our time here. With you, Shital, thank you for just the honest and openness that you brought to this conversation and how much hope that you provided us all during this time. I want to thank Amy Lovell for, laying the groundwork and sharing her experiences on a Global Brigades trip. Sue for the beautiful prayer, and Anne for welcoming all of us and creating a space for us to be able to share today. And with that, I want to thank Dr. Shital Vora for her time. And I want to turn it back over to Sister Anne, who is going to lead everyone through